We're live.
Welcome, everyone. Bienvenidos. You are here today with us for Cultivating Voices Live Poetry's second annual Pride Parade, Poetry Pride Parade. On top of that, yes, happy hands, happy everything. It's so great to be with you all. I'm Sandy Yannone, your host for today. I'm the author of Boats for Women, From Salmon Poetry. And what else could I be filled with just immense pride as I'm hosting today as your Grand Marshal of our second annual Poetry Pride Parade. We held our first, of course, last year, just months into the pandemic, to commemorate and celebrate the 50th anniversary of the very first Pride Parade. I don't know if there was poetry involved. I suspect there was, but that was in New York City on June 28th, 1970, which was coming after the 1-year anniversary of the Stonewall riots. If you know your LGBTQ plus history, you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, this is a little teaser for you to go and check your history. Well, now, today, we're here for the 51st Pride, and it arrives this month as we're beginning to be able to return in person to celebrate with our local communities again. But we're bringing you our second annual Poetry Pride Parade to honor our vaster community connections through the power of poetry. I want to give a tremendous welcome to all of you who are watching us live here in Zoom in our modest poetry studio, and to those of you who are also watching us live from Facebook. I know you have access to so many readings during June Pride Month and during the whole year, and I appreciate everyone returning week after week to our reading series, and especially want to thank those members of the LGBTQ plus community who have been reading with us over the lifespan of many Sundays on Cultivating Voices. That has included also as this Pride Parade and our first one, as well as our National Coming Out Day March that we did in October. I wish I had time to name each and every one of you, but I want to, again, to just acknowledge everyone's participation. I, of course, would like to, at this time, also welcome Emma Black, who will be our guest MC for the live open mic, which will follow our featured readers and close out our Poetry Pride Parade after, as I mentioned, those fabulous featured readers that you've been waiting for these weeks as we've been getting ready to come together today. If you're interested in reading in the live open mic, please sign up with Emma in the private message. We'll be taking about 10 to 12 folks. You'll be reading one poem up to 3 minutes each, and we so look forward to hearing your additional voices. What I so appreciate about our reading series is that any of our open mic folks have been and potentially will be features in the future. It's a very eclectic group, and anybody at any time could be a feature who's been reading in the open mic, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So again, feel free to, if you're interested in reading in the live open mic, send a private message to Emma, and we'll get in as many readers as reasonable. And Emma will be posting a list in the chat soon when we fill up for the order of that. I also want to give a huge shout out to my dear friends at Headmistress Press, Risa Dennenberg and Mary Miriam, the co-founders of Headmistress Press, who helped us co-sponsor the event last year. The 7th annual Charlotte Mew chapbook contest is going to be open for submissions until July 4th. And Headmistress Press wants to read your poems. And in fact, we have the judge for that chapbook contest here with us today reading, Julie Marie Wade. First prize winner receives $300 plus 20 copies of the winning book. And hey, how about this? Let's just announce it right here. The winner of the Charlotte Mew chapbook contest, 7th annual, will be invited to read next year as one of our headliners for our 3rd annual Poetry Pride Parade. So get your manuscripts in. I'll be posting in the chat some information about that. Share that with your friends. Another way, of course, that you can help celebrate poetry and pride is by supporting the poets and their presses by purchasing at least, did I say at least, one collection today, if your resources allowed. Hey, I would buy all of them. I'll be posting links to each of our featured websites where you can learn more about them and their work and where to purchase their astounding work. Well, as usual in Cultivating Voices, the chats are live here, both here in Zoom and on Facebook. So please send the big pride love to all of our poets today. Well, my friends, get out your bubbles, get out your ice cream, get out water, balloons, because the Poetry Pride Parade is getting ready to start. First today, we have joining us from County Mayo in the west of Ireland is Anne Walsh Donnelly, who has joined us many, many times. Always a joy to have Anne with us. And Anne writes poetry, prose, plays, and was shortlisted for the Hennessy Irish Times New Irish Writing Award in 2019 and was selected for the Poetry Ireland Introduction Series. In 2020, she was awarded a bursary from the International Dublin Gay Theatre Festival. Her chapbook, The Woman with an Owl Tattoo, was from Fly on the Wall Press 2019 and was awarded 2nd prize in the International Poetry Book Awards. And her first full poetry collection, which she read from just 2 weeks ago here on Cultivating Voices Live Poetry, is called Odd as Fuck. It was published just last month from Fly on the Wall Press. Would you please welcome the fabulous Anne Walsh Donnelly.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Sandy, Anne, for inviting me along again tonight to read. I read last year, so really looking forward to reading tonight as well. So I'm going to read one poem from my chapbook, The One with Now Tattoo, which is basically a poetic memoir of my coming out journey in midlife. And then I'm going to read some poems from my new collection, Odd as Fuck. And actually, tonight, well, for Pride Month, really, anybody who does purchase my full-length collection from my website gets a free copy of Owl as well. So that's just a little pride thing I'm doing. Sound okay. So the first poem I'm going to read is called Mná na hÉireann. And for those of you who don't know any Irish, Mná na hÉireann means woman of Ireland. And I wrote this shortly after the first time I made love with a woman. So it's all about the joys of making love with a woman. To die, not having known the frenzy of making love with a woman, is to live without ever jumping over the bar of your crib. How could you not want to watch a woman fling her underwear on your bedroom floor, present you with soft skin for your nails and teeth to score like bread on dough? How could you not want to feel your edges slip into her hollows like a spoon folding flour into cake batter? How could you not want to hear her whimper crescendo to a jungle roar while your fingers move inside her? How could you not want a denouement to your play when secret stories leak onto ivory sheets, tease tongues and start the sequel? How could you not want to drag a woman to bed at 7 on a Saturday evening rise at 2 on Sunday afternoon, sleep deprived and smelling like a marathon runner, race outside to tackle weedy flower beds, gleeful that soil will not rest in your clipped fingernails. So I hope you enjoyed that. I read that at a reading in Dublin, and someone came up to me afterwards and she said to me, that poem wants to make me leave my husband and go have an affair with a woman. So just, I'm serious. So I don't know if she did, but anyway, I felt my mission was accomplished. So the next poem is called The Wonder of You, and it's from my new book. And I wrote this, I was reflecting on what it would have been like to be gay in the 1960s in Ireland, which was a very different place to where we are now, thankfully. So it was reflecting on that and honouring women, you know, in the 1960s, now how hard it would have been. So it's called The Wonder of You. In St. Stephen's Green, 2 women watch children throw stale crusts to hungry ducks. They listen to Dickie Rock sing The Wonder of You from an old man's transistor radio. They stroke their newly styled beehive hair, sit side by side, feel a heat stronger than August sun. They dare to lick each other's cones, wary of eyes that might stone dead their intrinsically disordered love. So I don't know how many of you are, well, I used to be Catholic, but that's one thing that the Catholic Church says, like that, you know, our love is intrinsically disordered. So that's where that came out of. Okay, so next poem I'm going to read, it's called Two for Joy, and I actually wrote it last summer with COVID, sitting in the garden and saw a magpie. And I wrote it, it's basically about being in love with a woman who didn't feel the same way, and it's about that. And you know, sometimes relationships don't work out, but you can actually learn a lot from them, even though they don't work out. So this is called Two for Joy. My beloved stalks my mind when I sit in my garden and watch the birds. A screech alerts me to a magpie perching on my weeping birch. I search the sky, then scan the blackthorn hedge at the end of the garden, hoping for a second bird. Just as I'm about to stand and race towards the black and white winged creature, flapping my arms, another lands beside her. I sit back and listen to them chattering. Even though there are times I've wished we never met, I can't shoo my beloved away. She gave me something nobody else ever could. So there you go. Okay, so the next one I'm going to read is called Lioness or Labrador. And it's a reflection on, I suppose, where I am in my life at that stage of life where sometimes you have loads of energy and sometimes you have no energy. And sometimes you have loads of sexual energy and sometimes you don't. So anyway, it's called Lioness or Labrador. Sometimes all I want to be is a lioness, pounce on my lover, tear at her clothes as if pulling the flesh from a carcass of a fawn, roar myself hoarse while we wrestle to be on top, and after, coated in jungle sweat, lick my lips. Sometimes all I want to be is a Labrador, lie beside the stove, feel hands stroke my fur, watch lazily when a mouse sneaks into the kitchen, stops in the middle of the room, looks at me watching him, nibbles at a crumb under the table, and waltzes out the patio door. Okay, so the next one I'm going to read is actually the last one I'm going to read tonight, and it's called Joy. And a friend of mine sent me a postcard from Prague last year before COVID hit, and there was a painting on it called Ballad Joys of Life. I can't pronounce the guy that painted it, so sorry. It's not a language that I understand. So anyway, the poem is called Joy. Joy is a naked woman sitting astride a speckled grey mare, raising her arms like a victorious marathon runner, exposing the virgin white of her underarms and baby sham breasts. Joy is her hands bound by the untamed locks of her salted hair. I imagine mine delving into the folds of her unstarched body. Joy is another woman on a piebald, knees bent, her derriere a reversed C, skin the colour of Uluru sandstone, lips parted. Joy is the feel of hoofs sinking into damp sand, oblivious to the tide creeping towards them, like a white veil threatening to shroud. Joy is sitting in Prague, watching wild women ride. You, the grey speckled mare, and I, the piebald pony. There you go. Thanks for listening and watching, everybody, and happy Pride.
Thank you so much, Ann Walsh Donnelly. Going to put the link to where you can purchase Ann's work, the new collection, Odd as Fuck. And if you do that today, you also will get the bonus, The Woman with the Owl Tattoo. Always, always amazing to be able to hear your work. Thank you so much for starting us off at the Poetry Pride Parade. Great opening. And we move next back across the pond to a person that is no stranger to folks in our global poetry community, and that is Kai Coggin. Kai Coggin has been, is, and will be the host of Wednesday Night Poetry, which I know so many of you are familiar with because it is the longest running consecutive weekly open mic series in the United States, and didn't miss a beat in stepping up when the pandemic began. I remember having an early conversation with Kai as my sister and I were contemplating starting Cultivating Voices, and I'm so tremendously grateful to Kai for her gracious support of our work, as well as I'm a huge devotee of her poetry. Let me tell you a little bit about that. So Kai Coggin is the author of 3 full collections of poetry, including Periscope Heart from Swimming with Elephants, Wingspan from Golden Dragonfly Press, and Incandescent from the wonderful Sibling Rivalry Press. That's the latest collection, 2019. Kai also has a spoken word album, Silhouette, and describes herself as a queer woman of color who thinks Black lives matter, and being a teaching artist in poetry matters, and she does that with the Arkansas Arts Council. That poetry series, Wednesday Night Poetry, was recently named the best, she, along with being the host of that series, was named the best poet in Arkansas by the Arkansas Times for her fierce and tremendously powerful poetry, which you will get to hear. Kai's been nominated for the Pushcart Prize, as well as a Bettering American Poetry and Best of the Net. And poems have appeared widely all over and are forthcoming. Places like Entropy, Cultural Weekly, Sinister Wisdom, Lavender Review, also put out by our good friends at Headmistress Press, Blue Heron Review, Poetry, and elsewhere. And Kai is also the associate editor at the Rise Up Review, which, if you are not familiar with it, get familiar with it, friends. A tremendous, tremendous publication. Kai lives with her wife and their two adorable dogs in the valley of the small mountain in Hot Springs National Park. I'm not sure if it's as hot there as it is out here in the Pacific Northwest today, but welcome to you, Kai. Thanks for everything that you do, not only for the LGBTQ plus community, but for the poetry community vastly.
Wow. Whew. Thank you so much, Sandy. That was a hell of an introduction. I really appreciate you. I appreciate the space that you create and that you cultivate here with Dawn and all of our fellow poets here in the room and across the globe. I recognize a fellow humanitarian when I meet one. And so I just want to shout out gratitude to you. Yes, I host Wednesday Night Poetry. We went back live and in person a couple of weeks ago, and I miss the virtual space too. I miss having that reach, but I'm really glad that we are safely back in our little coffee shop. We will be continuing the virtual on the second Wednesday of every month up until December, just so we can still cultivate that community of Wednesday Night Poetry online as well. So I have 3 poems to share, but first I want to say something to Minnie Bruce Pratt. When I was in college, I grew up Catholic. I went to Texas A&M University and I joined the Corps of Cadets, which is a really Republican, horrible military organization. And my entire persona had to be cut off, had to be hidden. And I was hazed and I was found out for being gay and I was expelled from the Corps and all of these things. And I was taking a history of modern American women class there. And in my hands, I got the book Stone Butch Blues. And I found out about Leslie Feinberg and I found out about Minnie Bruce Pratt. And I just reading about their love story and seeing that there were women and trans people and people that were loving each other in such a fierce and beautiful way saved my life. And over this last year, I've been able to be in contact with Minnie Bruce, and she featured at Wednesday Night Poetry. And I just am so honored to share a stage with you, Minnie Bruce. And this morning I picked a rose for you in my garden, and my hand is shaking because that's how much love is in there. That's how much energy and appreciation is in there. And so if you hold out your hand, Minnie Bruce, and accept this rose, that's for you. Thank you. I love you and I appreciate you so much. And it's the generations that came before us that laid the foundation for us to safely be who we are. And that's what we do for the kids now. It's just us being here, us being loud, us being in these spaces that don't necessarily accept us, but continuing to be ourselves and continuing to love who we love, that allows and gives agency to the generations that will come. So thank you, Minnie Bruce. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to read a poem from Incandescent first. And Anne, that was some sexy stuff that you read over there in Ireland. So I'm going to try to be also a little sexy here. And this is a poem that I wrote about the first time that I kissed a girl. And it's called Her. I might have been 10 when I realized the magnets inside me were spinning toward her. Whoever her was, she was my everything. My longing to be close, my ache to be seen, my dream to be kissed by, touched by, missed by her. Whoever her was, she was my love, and I could not help but be enamored. The feelings did not die down. They grew into silent flowers in my chest until a meadow sprung from my mouth when I spoke, until petals only saying, "She loves me. She loves me. She loves me," spilled from my lips and became my words. At that age, I did not have the word gay, did not have the word lesbian, the word queer, just this fear to explain my frame of reference around my undeniable attraction to her. There was always a her through the years of my youth, a too far face I could fix my eyes and heart upon, like a star guiding me out of my black hole secret, Never close enough to touch, never close enough to whisper, never close enough to be real in my arms. I was taught those fires would burn me forever, and sin was named after a woman, but I wanted her skin on my mouth so much. The first time I kissed a girl at age 17, I might have been a fault line, the way I trembled, the way the earth moved all around our fresh young bodies. I remember her wild curls falling across my face, the way she laughed, the taste of her yes, the ceiling fan spinning rings over our heads. And I may have never returned to the earth that day, the way she sent me hovering into the atmosphere with only the fear that this moment might not be real. And these kisses, and her cheek, and her neck, and her shoulder, and her, and her, and her, moving up so close to the wild magnet of me, might just be a fleeting dream. But it wasn't a dream. It was love, real love, my first love, and her name stays with me, folded into my skin. And I can remember her in poems and be right there again, two budding young flowers opening to each other's fingers, how the memories linger after 20 years. She is married now to a man, has two beautiful children, and we don't speak. And I like to think it is because there is still a part of her that remembers how I trembled. And to no fault of hers or mine, love sometimes makes strangers out of lovers. But I can write her into a poem and thank her always for being real. Thank you. So that was for my first love. And I found my last love, and her name is Joanne. And we got married during the pandemic on Zoom. And we've been together for 14 years, well, almost 14 years, 13 and a half years. And so the next poem is the first poem that I wrote after we got married last July. And this is my official announcement. It's actually published in the July Poetry Magazine. So this was a huge lifetime dream of mine to be published in Poetry Magazine. So it's in this issue, and I'm really excited about that. And it's called Filling Spice Jars as Your Wife. It seems like all my poems after this will be different. They will hold a different weight, like how the weight of my heart has shifted into indistinguishable float, into lifting cloud, into weightless flight tonight as the rain gently falls on the summer-heated tin house, the din of casual raindrops and warm, low lights glowing and wind blowing through the house. We have all our doors and windows open. We have all our doors and windows open, and I am pouring spices into glass jars. Coriander, cinnamon, cumin, ground sage, and it's hard to describe this moment in the confines of a page. Tiny hills of vibrant color and intoxicating fragrance, and you hear the cadence of my heart from the kitchen, where you build the perfect fitting slip-in shelves for our spices over the stove. Match the colors, match my colors to yours. I have all my doors and windows open to you. I have all my doors and windows open to you, and you have come all the way inside, sat down at the table of my deepest desires and lit a fire to warm us both. The wind blowing through the house, the rain gently giving way to turmeric sunrise, and you, darling, you are my wife. You are my wife. And it's like I've been waiting my whole life to say those words, and I feel held in a way I have never felt before. To look down at my fingers dusted with ginger and thyme and see the gold of my wedding band glint and shine in the warm, low light glow. I am yours, and you are mine, promised on Zoom in our garden of giant zinnia and hummingbird vines. sung out in the morning song of bluebirds, this union that ripples love out to the world and infinities back into us again, love. In the fine powder of these spices, ground up essence of oregano and basil, I see our love in every atom suddenly, and every cell in me finally exhales. And perhaps that is the wind. Perhaps that is the wind blowing through the house, this release of eternal searching and finding you there, calling me your forever, naming me your always, to have and to hold till death do we part and start all over again, looking only for each other's hearts, taking my life in your hands eternal, marrying me to the heavens, latching me to the star trail of your white dress in this orbital dance, this lift and spin, this knowing from within that all my poems after this will be different because you are my wife. So that's from the July-August Poetry Magazine, and it's going to be in my forthcoming collection, Mining for Stardust, which is going to come out 11/11/2021 with Flower Song Press. And I have one more short poem that I just wrote. It's a very new poem. I've read it already at a couple of Pride events. It's about these two young kids that my wife and I met, and it's called Gender is Fluid. This morning, while putting on makeup side by side in the double mirrors of our bathroom, my wife says, "You know something crazy? When I see a person, I don't see a he or a she, I see a soul. But I thought the whole time he was a she wanting to be a boy, so I used he and him when talking to him. And his sister said, 'This is my brother,' and he really was a he, and he really was her brother." And I recall the young boy from yesterday, hair draped like curtains on either side of his face, the black eyeliner and black nail polish painted on long fingernails, his light crystal blue eyes that I swear saw into our souls from a distant galaxy with that kind of knowing. And I said, "That's because you care, honey. That's because you really care." The young ones are like water. They don't fit into our squares. The binary is only a limitation for their expansive expression. And we, the generations before this Z and Alpha, we try to fit them inside our blacks and our whites. We try to color them inside the lines. We cram them into confines because that is where we came from. When they are like water. They are like sun shining through mist, making rainbow. They are prismatic in their multifacets. And I remember the boy, the girl, the they, them, he, she, all into one and nothing at the same time. And those eyes, those bright blue eyes lined in thick, dark eyeliner, as if to say, look here, look in this mirror at what you could be if you believed you too are limitless. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
What a gorgeous, limitless, prismatic reading. That word prismatic, my absolute favorite word, probably in the whole language. And everything that your poems cast through, every atom. I'm thinking of so many lines that I've heard in your, again, one of your favorite words, obviously, title of your most recent collection, Incandescent. What poems that bring light and hope and strength. And I couldn't be happier than to feel like that we were at your wedding from that poem. What a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous love poem to love, not to a specific love, but to the idea of love in general and the vastness of it and why we celebrate Pride, so that
Thank you
everyone
so much.
has access, of course, can
Thank you so
celebrate and
much.
experience that. Thank you, Kai. And I hope that you will come back and read from your new collection next year. with
Aw,
us.
I'd be honored to. I would absolutely be honored to. And maybe New York or somewhere is in the near future also. I'm trying to plan a book tour. So let's talk.
Beautiful. Let's talk.
Thank you so much, Sandy. Yeah.
Thank you. Everybody, Kai Coggin, it's second Wednesdays now for Wednesday night poetry. I think you said second. I think I wrote it down as second. If I'm wrong, put that in the chat. Join it. It's terrific to see all the poets from all over the country, or caravan to Hot Springs and be live in the audience, right? Who knows? Well, next is a poet that I adore. As you all know, I'm very interested in bringing together intergenerational voices. And when you hear Charlie Dale's biography, you will understand the journey that Charlie is about to embark on and that Charlie has embarked on. I am thrilled to have Charlie back as someone who read in the first Poetry Pride Parade. So you're an alum of the Pride Parade, as is Anne. And here is some more about Charlie Dale. Charlie Dale is a trans masculine queer poet, writer, and avid mango lover. Growing up in between the redwood forest and the Pacific Ocean in Northern California, they write as a way of breathing and breathing themselves into the world. They have found solace and humanity in writing and strive to cultivate a world of liberation through vulnerability. Charlie recently graduated from the Evergreen State College right here in Olympia, Washington, where I'm joining you from today, with a BA and area of emphasis in writing and psychology. And this fall, Charlie will be attending the New School in New York to pursue an MFA in poetry. Would you please welcome Charlie Dale? There's some
Hi.
bubbles for you, Charlie.
Oh, thank you. I'm so grateful to be here. I feel really blessed to be with such amazing poets alongside as we march together. I want to read 3 pieces, and I want to start with this piece that I wrote in response to a project where I was exploring transmasculine histories and specifically testosterone and the people that have come before me that have given me access to this thing that has saved my life. And it is called Mapping Forgotten Histories. Everything we body-mind can do is wish. Incantations of desire, prismic perceptions bottled up. Temptations talk to me in empty space where we know not our slippery history. We are our own doctors. We are an experiment, squeezing masculinity into what we hope is the right part of our body, hoping it's the right amount. A monument to wish for self-sustaining solidarity spreading from our experiments to a world of color and possibility contained in bottles of prepackaged, unlabeled, inaccessible histories. Transmasculine stories in bodies documenting space. How despite the odds we breathe, pulsing in forgotten spaces never made for us. I endure every empty excuse to deny myself hope, for my body contains and maintains. carrying misplaced histories of salvation and transformation, and doing everything but wishing for a home and a body, until my kaleidoscope of sustenance is bottled up to contain me, house me and my ancestors' embodied experiments. Contemplating suicide as a special initiation for this experiment, perfectly calculating the exact amount of space in my vast collection of survival bottles that fill my body and existence with hope. A hole in your chest, a throat of stolen words, a wish to compile the malleable maps of a lost history of how we got here. My precious, viscous, invisible history of how transcestors and rare doctors risked lives and bodies to experiment on a life that they knew and dreamed would be greater than any wish to fade into the background living a lie. In use of forgotten spaces, they endeavored little by little to uncap the hope pent up in little airy and yellow synthetic bottles, living lives you couldn't hide from or bottle up, a delicate balance, a never taken for granted history. Even with all this gratitude, there is little hope we are truly doing it right. We are both patients and experimenters, claiming our right to exist in a world of our own carved out space. Silently, we grieve, knowing our granted wish cannot hold all our hope in these tiny bottles. We still wish for a world that strives to know and tell our history, honoring our wisdom and experiments, our right to take up space. Thank you. This next one is called What Blue Had to Say. Blue once whispered secrets in pink bedsheet bunk beds, surpassing silence. Blue once told me I was their favorite, and all would shatter if we broke our promise, if drops let down the dam. Blue was Barry. Blue was boasting. Blue was only after the lights turn off and the bantering boys go home. Blue said, I will hold you as the river shakes, carries you away. Blue said, don't forget me, even when you've forgotten yourself. Paddle, lap your lips on my edges, sharp as a bow or a bridge. Bellow below, begotten Boy Scout badges. Blue bursts, bubbling. Battle scars a creaky heart as it kaleidoscopes blue. Blue hair ballerina boy, I open. A bridge, big expanse, balcony, boy. First of many years of secret, blue, baby beluga, tell me, do you hear the tree as it falls in the forest when I'm not there? Baby, tell me, do you hear waterfalls in this fall as we fade away from dangling arms and hands and legs, treats and toes? Baby, tell me, do you shake and hear river in your ears? Does beauty humble you? Did it to the core of you? Hard to believe we each have our own eyes. I know I tried to hide, but when did you stop looking? And are you even now? How do I know you ever saw? Chest ripped open, sternum sliced, ice, dam breaks into waterfall. No survivors. The icy blast of dethaw leaves us all with cold feet. Thank you. And then I have one final poem, which is kind of an ode to my body. It's called My Body. My body is magical, morphing its face around my body's opalescent caverns. I concave on every breath as a heavy sigh clings to my scars, squeezing air and marking distance of miles traveled. My body is a graveyard where all the dead come talking. My body is of many faces. Bubbled down, I am a taste acquired as salt sticks to stone. My body is divine, to be honored and exalted. Those who know stretching it takes to breathe into a new body, recontextualizing beauty, may come closer to know me. Those who rough the rub, taste iron-scraped skin, hug the asphalt of irony, may come to know me. Those who believe in freedom but know not what mouths contain may follow the breadcrumbs of my body as signs we still breathe. I am still here. My body knows not the limit of your containers. I am not a body forgot. I am not for you to define. Look too close to me and you will have lost my stalagmitic stars. I am both stardust and moonbeam, clit dick and hole Johnson, hotter than any star, and I burn and am exploding. Watch me. Take none of the flesh you see in front of you for granted. And when you see my body, see not only the magic, see portals of thresholds you haven't yet crossed. Thank you so much.
Charlie, you know how much I appreciate your work, and I know I've had a front row seat and to the creation of that work, and it's been one of the most profound experiences for me on my journey. I appreciate how you evoke what it means to strive to be seen and heard. And I continue to send out a lot of love to you on that journey. Thank you for being here today and for sharing those poems. I love that more people are getting to hear your work every day. Everybody, that's Charlie Dale. Look up Charlie in New York in these upcoming months, and go see Charlie read. Well, I love every float that is coming by our parade today. I am, again, I'm overwhelmed already by what I've heard, and let's use Kai's word, the prismatic nature of what of the richness of the history and the richness of what to come. I mean, the acknowledging of where we've been and where we're going. Our next reader has written much, our next poet has written much as a poet and cultural critic on the prismatic nature of the LGBTQ experience. And every time I hear Julie Marie Wade read, I fall down a little further on my knees, to be honest. I want to show a particular limited edition collection because it's so perfect for today's reading, which is Pride. There it is, such a beautiful, beautiful book. And I could not be more humbled than to have you join all the rest of the humility of the folks that have been with us today so far and who's going to follow. Let me tell you a little bit more about Julie Marie Wade. Julie's the author of 13 collections of poetry and prose. Most recently, the poetry collection Skirted, and the book-length lyric essay, Just an Ordinary Woman Breathing. She teaches in the creative writing program at Florida International University and makes her home with Angie Griffin in Dania Beach, Florida. You are very humble about yourself, and you are fantastic, and I just can't wait to hear what you're going to share with us today. Would you please welcome Julie Marie Wade?
Thank you so much, Sandy. Everyone's been saying this in the chat, but there's no more exuberant host. I feel like I could just listen to a reading of you doing introductions and my life would be full. So thank you for being so excited for all of us, even as excited as any of us could ever be to read. I am going to read from Pride. It's a collection that was done last year by the wonderful people at the Mayday Studio, the Center for Book Arts in Vermont. The MFA students there made this collection. It's hybrid. I have 25 in the book. They're all called floats. I think of them as 25 like queer touchstone moments of my life, but they're also often intersecting with moments in the larger world, the culture. And I'm going to read 3 of them today. And these are, you'll have context from the float when they fall in my life. And perhaps you'll know the first one is a film, the second one is a television series, and the third one is a personal anecdote. So thank you for having me. The first, Float, Yentl, October 4th through 8th, 1993. The film is nearly 10 years old by the time we watch it in world cultures. My classmates, all girls, all bored. I try to feign boredom as a way to fit in, but it's hard to hide what I'm feeling. It's also hard to explain. Yentl wants to study, so she cuts her hair and changes her clothes, pretends to be a boy named Anshul. But she's too pretty to be a boy, isn't she? I've never seen a boy with cheekbones like that. When I look at her, either way, long-haired girl she was, short-haired boy she becomes, my stomach pangs like it's lunchtime, but it's only 9 a.m. Later, when Anshul kisses Haddis, the woman she's supposed to marry, the pang becomes a tug, and the tug is lower than my stomach, hard and sharp, like my zipper is caught beneath me, and there's no way to pull it up. You should have seen the light, so soft, almost angelic, their faces in silhouette as they kiss and kiss, turning their heads every time their noses bump. Haddis wants to do more than kiss, but Anshul won't let things go any further. I want to know what doing more, what going further means, exactly. I have never seen 2 women kiss like this before, and every time I think about their mouths coming together in the semi-light and the semi-dark, I feel that tug again. It means something that isn't meant for words. Instead, I thank Ms. Curran for showing us the film. This is another day after class, no one else around. I say, it's so nice to see something progressive for once. My parents won't even let me watch picket fences because of what happened last spring. She doesn't know the show, doesn't know what happened. Oh, well, just because the 2 teenage girls, they kissed each other. Ms. Curran is so nice, so progressive. She isn't a nun, and she kept her maiden name even after she got married. She chose not to have children and made sure we always wrote Ms., not Miss, the Gloria Steinem way. But now I see how her brow crinkles, how she twists her head like a corkscrew. This isn't like that, she says. Yentl isn't a lesbian. I startle to hear her say the word aloud. No, I mean, I know, but she played those scenes with Haddis. Ms. Curran twists her head again. Haddis isn't a lesbian either. She really believes Anshul is a man. Instead of a tug, a sinking feeling, like a coin dropping into a well. But Barbra Streisand is a woman, and she kissed the other actress. I don't remember her name. In the end, it's still 2 women kissing, even if one of them is wearing a disguise. Ms. Curran becomes more adamant now, says it more firmly this time. No, it isn't, Julie. Intentions matter. Reasons matter. All Yentl wants is a good education, and all Haddis wants is a good husband. End of story. So then we have, thank you for your clapping. Then we have Float, Picket Fences, April 29th, 1993. My parents sometimes watched a show called Picket Fences because Tom Skerritt played the sheriff, and my mom thought Tom Skerritt was a heartthrob. My aunt even saw him once shopping at a bookstore in Bellevue. She got too flustered to ask for his autograph, but she still liked to reminisce. I'm telling you, I was so close I could have touched him. Everyone seemed impressed. What I remember from that time was how hard it was to imagine touching a boy, but also how desperately I wanted to be kissed. I watched Captain Von Trapp kiss Fräulein Maria in slow motion at least 50 times a week. I smuggled home a tiny book bought with my allowance at the local Hallmark store. On every page, a quote about kissing, or a classic painting or black and white photograph depicting two lovers engaged in a kiss. The book could fit in the palm of my hand. So discreet, my little piece of kissing contraband. I read it every night before bed. Yet when I dreamed of kissing, I could never see the boy or feel his body in the deep self-conscious dark. I could only feel my longing. And then, for a brief moment before waking, the cessation of that longing. Did I want to watch picket fences with my parents? No. Was I in the habit of watching picket fences with my parents? Not really. But then all the hoopla started over an episode called Sugar and Spice, my aunt distraught that Tom Skerritt would ever be party to such a thing, my mother rushing to his defense. I'm sure they're not going to condone it on the show. I'm sure it's meant to be a wake-up call to all the parents out there who think it can't happen to their kids, can't happen in their homes. Consider this your wake-up call, Mom. My father said he wouldn't watch the Homosode on principle, but then he watched it anyway, with a big bowl of popcorn in his lap, a big can of Shasta sweating in his hand. I stood on the landing and called down the stairs. In unison, my parents shouted, "Go to bed!" Instead, I crouched on the second step where I hoped to catch a flicker from the big screen TV. Two girls were going to kiss. My kissing book hadn't prepared me for this. It was a sleepover, I think, but the room was so dark I couldn't make out their faces or watch what they did with their hands. One of the girls was the sheriff's daughter. My parents commiserated for him. Poor Tom Skerritt. To be touched by a scourge like this. The other girl was a friend from school. She brought a friend home to stay the night, and look what happened. I must have gasped or shifted my weight, and that's when they heard me. My mother tossed her head backwards. My father leapt to his feet. "We told you to go to bed." To my mother, a thing like this could put ideas in her head. I didn't know then that a person's identity could be used as a ploy, could be played like a trump card in a media ante. I strained to imagine. Executives sat in boardrooms betting on a lesbian kiss. Who would they entice? Who would they offend? And would it be worth it? A cost-benefit analysis might have to be performed. Someone might crunch the numbers, graph them, present the data as a PowerPoint. Everyone would eat croissants and drink lattes, then grimace or applaud. LA Law gambled on a same-sex scenario, but I didn't watch that show. Roseanne did too, but ditto. And Party of Five cashed in on the same cheap trick, though I never saw it either. I wanted to watch because I liked the look of Neve Campbell, because I found her beguiling in a Winona Ryder kind of way. But if anyone had asked me then, I would have said, the brother on that show is so fine. And if they had pressed me to name which of the brothers I liked, Charlie or Bailey, because of course I learned their names, I would have played it cool. I would have said, you got me there. Both of them are really freaking fine. I was young and naive, but also really freaking scared. From an early age, I learned how to calculate profit and loss. And then I'm gonna close. These happen to be chronological, though the whole book is not, but this is my little triptych of kisses. Float, Gala Court, June 3rd, 2002. How when I finally kissed her in her studio apartment on Gala Court, of course we said Gala, she kissed me back. Or perhaps she kissed me first and I was just so eager for that kiss, I misremember now my enthusiasm as initiation. I had been telling this whole cockamamie story about The Sound of Music, a movie she had never seen, so it meant nothing to her when Captain Von Trapp tells Baroness Schrader, you can't marry someone when you're in love with someone else, referring to himself in the second person. I was already in love with Angie then. Not all first kisses happen this way, though some surely do, and I was lucky. We might have kissed sooner, of course, if I could have ever stopped talking. The cranky man on his porch in It's a Wonderful Life tells George Bailey, "Why don't you kiss her instead of talking her to death?" Angie hadn't seen that movie either. "Did your family only watch really old, really boring stuff?" she asked. Yes, but it wasn't boring to me. Because I was used to kissing men or being kissed by them, I hadn't realized how small her mouth would be by comparison. I noticed the difference, and then I never noticed it again. Everything gave way to a soft plum feeling. This wasn't gay kissing, it was just kissing, what would be thereafter the epitome of kissing. And for the first time, I wasn't worried about what came next, because everything came next, and she was everything. Thank you.
Well, fortunately for all of us, you're going to be coming back in August to read from your new collection, Skirted. So everybody be forewarned, come on back in August, hear more from, you know, the luminous Julie Marie Wade. And thank you for all three of those floats, the epitome of kisses. I too had the crush on Nev Campbell, and I couldn't wait for that episode. And also the Wonder Years did that too. There was an episode of the Wonder Years. Yeah, there's a whole, it's like a whole thing that happened, of course. Thank you for capturing these stories, how popular culture intersected like with our own closets and desires to come out of the closets, and how that would manifest. Again, I go back to Charlie, what I was saying about Charlie. How were we going to become seen and heard, you know, before we allowed ourselves to become seen and heard? Thank you so very much, Julie. Well, next is a person who's just become a dear friend of mine since Mary Oishi first read in the Poetry Pride Parade, and has been with us a number of times, and also read in the collectibles, as has Julie, as has Minnie Bruce Pratt in the collectibles series as well. Our reading on Witness in May was so profound with Janice Mirikitani and Tanya Kohong. And I feel that every time I get to hear Mary's work and read Mary's work, you know, that window of humanity opens up a little wider. So again, so grateful to have Mary Oishi today with us. Well, Mary is the current poet laureate of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and is the author of quite an exquisite collection, Spirit Birds, They Told Me, and the co-author of Rock, Paper, Scissors, which Mary co-authored with her daughter. And it's such an interesting dialogue. So I really want to encourage you to look for these two titles, seek them out. Mary's work appears in numerous reviews and anthologies in both English and Spanish. And Mary has been a radio professional, where a public radio professional. The public is very important in public radio. And where she volunteered also with queer youth for 17 years. Would you please welcome Mary Oishi? And here's some bubbles for you, Mary, in Albuquerque.
I love your parade outfit, Sandy. It's perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, I agree with everyone else. You're an amazing host. Always were. Yes. So I wasn't going to read a kiss poem, but I feel it's obligatory at this point. So this is from Spirit Birds. They told me, ask Alice. I remember reading Through the Looking Glass with a friend, my first female lover. We both liked Vonnegut and Lewis Carroll. Our favorite saying was the Red Queen quotation when she gave Alice a dry biscuit. Thirst quenched, I hope. Tail end hippies in the late 70s, trying out a new kind of love. She taught me how to kiss. And I knew from the very first one, no dry biscuits here. Where did this come from? Appalachian response. Which one of you is Frankie? Lancaster County response, young, silence and look away. Lancaster County response, old, pretends we're Laverne and Shirley. City response, coworker. Want me to bring you back a boyfriend? No, laughs. Want me to bring you back a boyfriend? No, laughs. Want me to bring you back a boyfriend? No, laughs. Want me to bring you back a boyfriend? No, but you can bring me his sister. Shock, shock. That's a perfectly fine lifestyle choice. Hurries away, comes back much later. Well, I don't care if you are gay, you're still pretty darn cute. Okay. A couple years ago, I dated a woman who spoke fluent English, but Spanish was her first language. And to brush up on my high school Spanish, I got a Pimsleur course. So after we separated, I wrote this, and now I find it somewhat amusing. It's called Second Language. 1, I need a Pimsleur course on how to stop loving. Repeat after the speaker. She doesn't love you, get over it, pause. She doesn't love you, get over it. Somebody will come along who sees what a treasure you are, pause. Somebody will come along who sees what a treasure you are. Now listen to this important new phrase, and will be ready and happy to return your love, pause. And will be ready and happy to return your love. Now listen to this whole conversation together and repeat after the speaker. Somebody will come along who sees what a treasure you are and will be ready and happy to return your love, pause. Somebody will come along who sees what a treasure you are and will be ready and happy to return your love. Do you remember what to say after she doesn't love you? Pause. Get over it. Get over it. Pause. Get over it. She doesn't love you. Get over it. Pause. She doesn't love you. Get over it. 2, I speak the language of love. Hablo el idioma del amor. I do not speak the language of unlove. The tongue of love fills my mouth. I do not know how to say, I have cut the tongue of love out of my mouth. The heart of love beats her name. I do not know how to say, be still, heart of love in my chest. I speak the language of love. The language of unlove, no entiendo. Albuquerque Pride. Today was Gay Pride, and from high atop that black Cadillac, right behind the mayor's police protection, I rode up Central Avenue, waving to the cheering crowds. Spotted friends and familiar faces here and there, but most were strangers who now know my name if they didn't before. I felt so embraced by my city, by my community of queers, my beautiful loves, wounded but so beautiful, so very beautiful. The artists and the ones who make the wheels go round, the overly addicted, underappreciated, magnificent hearts, full of love and belief in the goodness and power of the raw human soul, stripped of unnecessary restrictions, daring to feel, to express, to soar, flamboyant and free, not gender encased, but love liberated, wide-eyed, seductive, and real. Two spirits float past us, magnificent in their turquoise, their reds, and their blacks. It's Albuquerque, Indian country. La Raza is marching, Latinx, who once stormed a courthouse to arrest a DA. La Raza has no doubt their cause is justified, and I quite agree. I have gained such affection for Los Pueblos Unidos. I catch a glimpse of my other people as we round the corner by Ta Lin. Me in my bamboo patterned shirt, on past the right-wing hecklers standing on their three slim letters, S-I-N. What narrow lives, how sad for them. I couldn't help but call out to my expansive sisters and brothers sandwiching their hatred, "You're so beautiful." They smiled and called back, "You're beautiful too." It was a very good day to be gay in Albuquerque, a very good day indeed. Do I have time for another? A love that dares. What torment, love that dare not speak its name. There was a time I thought that name would choke me if I dared to say it one thin time, so paralyzed with shame. But comes a time no power can hold that love. It dares to speak its name, to shout, shout till it's leading the parade. A love once trembling, more than dares to speak its name. It's chanting thunder down Fifth Avenue in June. Stronger than the strongest shame, this love that surged in me. So what the name? Swelling pride became the buffer zone till I could safely shrink back down to calm. Here in the ripeness of my middle years, I find the ease to speak it soft, without a second thought, like any other fact of life. My green eyes, my mixed heritage, my left-handedness, so effortless, so natural. There is no dare to speak its name. I happen to love women, that is all. No pride, no shame. But I read one from Rock, Paper, Scissors, really short one. Okay. This is called Karen, and it's not the name Karen. It's a Karen, like, you know, the giant rock and then the graduated sizes. And like you see in Japanese gardens, and I put one in my backyard and then I meditated on it and came up with this. Yeah. Karen, of all my former loves, there are no stones I want to throw, though some weighed heavy for a while. The largest seem most far away. They form foundation for my cairn. I place them, memories and lessons learned, gently piled, zen in my feeling garden. Admire them in the aggregate, flawed and flawless, in the sun, wind, rain of time, worn beautiful again. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary Oishi. You got all the words into your poems. You had pride, parade, a host of kisses, and who doesn't want to be gay in Albuquerque? I'm ready to move down there because I just hear so much about it, and I'm like, I'm ready to move. I'm ready to move. Thank you.
You would be most welcome, Sandy. You would be most welcome.
I'll bring my hat. We'll see you very soon, of course. And thank you for all of your contributions to your local community in Albuquerque, and also just to the queer communities that I know you've been doing so much activism and work for many, many years. I very much have appreciated learning about and from your journey. I'm most grateful. And we'll see you on Cultivating Voices soon again, I'm sure. Thank you again. Well, next is one of my salmon poetry brothers. I like to call all the salmon poets my siblings. And one of my siblings started that off when I had heard that my first collection was going to get published after a wait of 19 years. One of my salmon brothers wrote me a letter and he said, well, now I'm always your brother. And that encouraged me to call all of my salmon poets my siblings and brothers and sisters. And also so much appreciation for what Mark Ward does in Dublin as the editor of the international LGBTQ plus journal, Impossible Archetype. If you do not know the journal, I encourage you to read it. And of course, to those of you here, I encourage you also to submit to it. It's a really exquisitely curated literary marvel. Well, a little bit more about Mark and Mark's other work that also is quite a marvel. I've had the pleasure of hearing Mark read as well. Mark is the author of the chapbooks Circumference from Finishing Line Press 2018, and from last year, the full-length collection Carcass from Seven Kitchens Press, as well as forthcoming from, of course, Salmon Poetry, full-length collection Nightlight. Again, Mark is the founding editor of Impossible Archetype, an international journal of LGBTQ plus poetry, now in its 5th year, that has brought many, many voices to the forefront. And I couldn't be more grateful for the work that you do to cultivate voices and bring them forward in the fabulous way, the fabulous vision that you have for LGBTQ plus voices. Thank you, Mark Ward, and thank you for being an alumnus of the Pride Parade, also joined us last year. It's always a pleasure to be able to hear your voice and your poetry. So thank you.
Sandy, oh my God, wow, what an introduction. My God, I feel like I'm nearly welling up here. It's absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for having me back and for having this platform, which is just so wonderful. That's, brightened up everyone's pandemic, and it's still here, and it's a huge success. Thank you for the bubbles. So yeah, I apologize. I'm a bit out of it. I've a stinking head cold at the moment, so if I sound like a bag of cats or a bit sniffly, we'll just have to go on through because it's Pride and you keep going no matter what. So I'm going to read 5 pieces for you. The first is from Nightlight, which will be out next year, and it's called Turkish Bath. Under the railway arches, a queer London imitation with its own elliptical rituals, a silent bartering for pre-residuals. You're one of the contactables, as Armistead once said. Our groin and ass conjoining the fiction that skin spins. Our rhythms supersede the heavy gravity outside. Each touch is a spotlight throwing the rest of the world in darkness. The steam is set dressing, burying the cold sweat of your situation. We chat about our impending dissolution into strangers' lives. You ladle water over stones and disappear in their encroaching hiss. I rinse, you shower thoroughly, a surgeon blanching his skin, a guzzle you correct me, a ritual you couldn't possibly. You tell off, leaving me fouled with no hot water. Next one I'm going to read is when I think about pride, there's a lot in the news recently about countries that are having a difficult time with their pride parades and stuff. And I wrote a poem a couple of years ago based on a horrific story about Ugandan LGBTQ activists who were subjected to torture, basically a forced anal exam. And I wrote this poem in response from the point of view. Exam. I feel his fingers pull me apart. I am on all fours on a steel trolley somewhere underground in town. All I can see is feet passing. I clench. He smacks my arse, and for a moment I am at home with you, this easy intimacy before bed. Fingers always hurt. The nails, even through gloves, that illusion of hygiene. He opens me to peer inside. He rummages, searching for sedition or semen, something to prove I walk around with sinful innards. I make no sound, and when he is done, despite telling me I can dress, I remain, trousers round my ankles, without shame, fully aware of my unprovable proficiencies, until he leaves in disgust. Next poem is from Carcass. And it is, there was a call out for, I think it was Men in Love or something, or Man in Love, or anyway, I got thinking about violence and queer violence and kind of the rare positive aspect and kind of how physicality can be intimate and S&M and things like that. So this is a villanelle called Urge. A smack, a slap across my skin, akin to crime I partake in. The canvas molds his own beating by controlling the precision and how frequent each collision, a smack, a slap across my skin, my tacit stare regulating this edge in which we dabble in. The canvas molds his own beating, smiling, savoring the feeling, the sensation we're creating, a smack, the slap across my skin stops time and space and narrowing down to the sound of your breathing. The canvas molds his own beating, submitting to his ransacking. The world almost whirls out of control, but each smack, each slap reins it back in. The canvas molds his own beating. This next poem is a form that I've never really done before, and it was a lot of form. It's an ABCDarian, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce it. And it has got the amazing title, which I'm very proud of I Wonder What Your Cock Tastes Like. I wonder what your cock tastes like. An avalanche, an acid bath, a courtesy telephone, a dream in which a repressed memory comes to light. An elegant dress, a fire causing me to gurn, or are you getting close? Holiday romance, idolatry, you overconfident Jacqueline, your kryptonite, lethargic, lambent, a Molly lapping the room, a nothingness in which I fall into, an obstruction in your otherwise perfect body, poetry framed by your prick, a question I could never formulate. A riot, shout, loosing its way out through the throat, making space for your ugliness that I lick up. Venus, vacation from the world, a woman, a xylophone struck with terrible awareness of us, of you coming back to ourselves, the terror in your eyes at what comes next, an overzealous exit. Thank you. This last poem is going to be published next month, and it's one of those rare things that's relatively happy in my poetry. It's a queer, body positive retelling of The Emperor's New Clothes, and it's going to be in the Left Press anthology, Burly Tales, finally, fairy tales for the pursuit man. and it's called Heft. And before I go, thank you again to Sandy and for everybody. It's been wonderful listening to all this evening. Heft. Those thin men, skeletons in tight flesh, they say you've put on weight since the whole new clothes affair. But at least there's no more pretense. They were sure of your shame, but instead you reveled in how your body moved. Let those knights aspire to tautness. You installed mirrors, had seconds, took to walking around the palace naked and gloriously feckless. I had left home, being the youngest and having eaten them out of it. I found a job as a footman, yours. You like to inspect yourself, you like to inspect us yourself, which caused a whisper when company was coming. Some queen and her stable of princesses to dangle under your nose. That day you wore a robe, just about. My uniform didn't fit and I bulged out of it, embarrassed. We didn't speak, but a week later one arrived, tailor-made. The others noticed and the first footman told me to go and say thank you. At your room, the maid said you were in the library, asleep, naked in a chair. Your book had slid down, covering nothing. You awoke and stared at me, still half asleep, before realizing your body had woken too. You were embarrassed, something no one had seen you be since that day. The whole town laughed at you, not for your body, but your gullibility. You had swooned over the tailor. You later told me, his barrel chest, his measuring tape covering every inch of you. You wanted it to be true. Now you reached for a robe and covered yourself, abashed. I'm sorry for interrupting, sir. And you laughed, smiled. You didn't, Jones, isn't it? I instinctively straightened up. Yes, sir. And you didn't speak for a long minute. I'm glad to see that your new attire suits you well. I wanted you to be comfortable in it, a handsome man like yourself. The next day, dressed, you sat and spoke with me about small things, palace life, everything. Within a few weeks, our visits were twice daily. You asked if I would be happy to spend my time with you as your personal footman. You stared at the ground, nervous. I would say no. I'd really like that, but there's just one thing. You sighed, regretting saying anything. The clothes you've been wearing have got to go. You smiled but said, I can't. Not around you. I undid your buttons, your breeches, and kissed you, embracing your heft. I stripped too and brought us to the mirror to see us in our finery. Happy Pride, everybody. Thank you.
Happy Pride, Mark. Cold or no cold, you know how to bring the alphabet to life for sure. And, you know, I hope that folks here who are hearing you for the first time, perhaps, of course, will never forget it and will be looking up Impossible Archetype as well as Circumference and Carcass and be looking for your upcoming new collection from Salmon, which certainly I will do whatever I can to help highlight Nightlight. Thank you so much. Be well for the rest of the evening. And what a carnival of imagination, vulnerability, and power in those poems this evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, next is Kai spoke so lovingly and generously and truthfully about the legacy of Minnie Bruce Pratt and how Minnie Bruce Pratt's work has really touched so many of us in how we were able to march forward on our journeys. And I honestly get a bit choked up thinking about, just thinking about how much respect and gratitude. Charlie talked about the transcestors, and it's so important to acknowledge all the ways that I remember when I read your work for the first time, and then had the pleasure to meet you and Leslie a couple different times, and then to reconnect with you through the reading series. Just how important your journey has been to me personally, but also to so many people in this room. And so again, what an absolute honor and prideful joy to be able to be even in a virtual room with you, Minnie Bruce, even in a virtual room with you. A little bit more about Minnie Bruce Pratt. Minnie Bruce Pratt's poetry on being a lesbian mother, crime against nature, was honored with the Lamont Poetry Selection of the Academy of American Poets. And for those of you not necessarily in the know, it is, it's one of the highest awards that a book can receive. And I remember reading it well, and still read it to this day. It is one of those books that says, never forget, never forget. Well, from Crime Against Nature, we go to Minnie Bruce Pratt's most recent book that came out earlier this year, Magnified, poems emerging from her life with trans activist and writer Leslie Feinberg, whom we've also mentioned in the reading today. And that is available from the Wesleyan Poetry Series, Wesleyan University Press, and through Charis Books and many more places online. There are so many words and no words that I could use to send my love and pride to you, Minnie Bruce. Thank you for being with us. We are all the better for you being the presence that you've been for so many years to so many of us. Happy Pride to you.
Thank you so much, Sandy. A little overwhelmed. Let me just check first though, because I'm getting one of those ominous messages that say your internet connection is unstable. So you can hear me okay, right? Yeah. Okay, good. I thought I would check before I said anything else. So I'm a little overwhelmed. Pride is always a very emotional day, I think, for all of us. It's special thanks to you and to Don and to Risa, who I know is on right now too, and all the Cultivating Voices folks for getting us together today on this ever, always and special day. And special love to Kai. Thank you, Kai, for telling that story about your life and our connection. When you start your work, the work that's yours to do in the world, you really have no idea what's going to be done with it by other people. All you can do is be very faithful to yourself and to your task in relation to what needs to be done. So it's with some astonishment that I find myself here this many years later. Of course, one poet's imagination would never have brought this reality about. It was our collective imagination, which continues in this reading and in this series and in the series that Kai puts together. We're still collectively imagining a future together. and the readings that the other poets have done and that I look forward to hearing from those who've not yet read are very, very boldly challenging about the future that we're making at this very minute. So that's tremendously exciting to me personally. I'm just going to read a few poems from Magnified. As Sandy said, these poems came out of my last years with my beloved Leslie Feinberg. But today I really wanted to emphasize the glory and joy of our being lovers together during that time. So those are the poems I'm going to read particularly from today. And the first one is the title poem, Magnified. I bend over the cobbled verge, the used for nothing now edge, except to make the little glints insignificant that catch my eye. The first flowers, smaller than this S, smaller than this word, pink jaws, blue bow, white knives. And if I had my pocket lens to swivel out and magnify what I could see, then I would see us. Inside the quiet rooms you almost never leave now. Us bending over the table, touching the painted wooden eggs you gave me last spring. The white seed dots, the cross-hatched grass, golden yellow, that on red, blue, yellow, green. You and me rolling the spring back and forth in our hands. The silver mist outside, the next day we can't see inside. Shining. The first morning after your worst night, I walk out into a shining, bristled whiskers of light on the campion's cheek, the pupil of nectared dew in a tulip's mascaraed eye. Yes, the visual profusion. But what I feel, I hold the eager, the tender, the fibered stalk of flower in my hand, its slight yearning. The way I stroke your side, your flank, trying to brush pain off into the night. At us sometimes. As I lie down beside you, she pulls a silvery sheet over us and then retreats to her silent nighttime reading, east to west. Night after night, that bright gaze moves over us, lying under the comfort of being watched over. The round illuminated magnifying glass in Mama's hands as she passed into dementia and understood less and less, her anxious eyes reading the same line over and over. The moon that shone in my window when I was little and supposed to have religion, so I knelt and prayed in that light because she looked back at me. Everything earthly and imperfect changes under the moon. In this moment, beside you, I am perfectly happy, lying in the moon's light, drifting slowly with you into illegible sleep. The peacock fan. Another day comes, sun. You can walk to the car. At the zoo, we watch a peacock unfurl its spiny prismatic fan, the quiver of feathers, the quill work, the vibration faster than any hand could fan desire. I say, remember the feather fan you gave me? I folded and opened the veins to peer over at the stern, handsome face you wait behind. You watch the world come at you, toward you. Then you give another look. It's just for me. The glint, the sun striking the peacock blue. The peacock ore I saw behind museum glass, the copper iron sulfide rock burning at high temperatures, volcanic igneous iridescence. Light responding to the surface of a substance, responding to light. Your wavelength, my wave. Sweet sweat. East along the line of apple trees on holly, the skin of the petals translucent in the sun early, the body and arms of the trees gleaming through. I come closer and press my nose into the blossoms, the fragrance of your skin, faint, sweet sweat, as if salt and all the minerals of the earth are called up into you and alchemized by you, breathing out through every pore what you've lived, your love, your chemistry, your history, the smell of your skin. Licked. The people we were, the people we are now. The apple blossoms blown, flowers fallen, blight biting into every leaf, skin scaling on the trunk and branches, skeletal shadows on the walk as I pass, grieving and loving this bony, brittle world that breaks and opens day after day. The bees gnawing at the red-hearted rose of Sharon, licked, sticky all over from flower tongues, pollen bristle, until it's hard to tell the flower from the bee, the insect from the tree. Me from you, you from me. The dazzle, after it's so, is always there, but well hidden. Without the sun, who could see the sparkle? This morning, in and out, a dazzle, and suddenly it's late summer, blue chicory, hawksweed, the spidery Anne's lace, my hand stretching out. And I can almost grasp the you who played behind the projects in the fields, through miles of flowers, the you still roaming, the gleam at the beginning, and still in your eye. And this is the last one of this batch. Do not seek to remain. I'm reading Marx in the Eastwood McDonald's. Fleetwood Mac is singing, don't stop thinking about tomorrow. Marx is saying, do not seek to remain something formed by the past, but in the absolute moment of becoming. The words are ripping up the moment, and I fall into a tomorrow without you. No morning, no night, No sleeping, no waking, no the present. How do I go on? The way yesterday a tree shook its small crescents of seed, angled for planting, sickled for reaping, red in the blue sky. The answer in things, not words, but I yearn to talk to you without end about what makes that beauty and what that beauty makes of us. And I'm just going to end by putting into the chat Leslie's still existing website where, by her wishes, people can download for free a copy of Stone Butch Blues and share the website and share the book with anybody that you want to share it with. These were by Leslie's wishes. Her last words were, "Remember me as a revolutionary communist." Thank you so much for having me here today. And for all the other poets, your beautiful, wonderful, challenging words.
Minnie, Bruce, Pratt, everyone, thank you for your poetry of consciousness and conscience, and those poems that look back but allow us in looking back with you in that really tender yet powerful. There's the strength in the tenderness that comes through in the work so palpably, that says we look back in order to remember to go forward, to keep going forward. And no better example of that than how you ended your reading, and also that incredible gesture of making sure that Stone Butch Blues continues to move forward with us. I could talk for a long time about the significance of reading and myself personally, and also teaching Stone Butch Blues as well. So I appreciate you bringing that portrait of your life together so that we can carry forward with you.
Thank you,
In
Sam.
that memory, astounding work. Also, Minnie Bruce will be back with us in August to read more from Magnified in our new book showcase. And we look forward to welcoming you back later this summer. Thank you. Well, we have our final 4 readers coming up, and next is a poet I adore every single person that's here in my own bizarre, unique ways, or else you would not be here today. The first time that I heard Gustavo Hernandez read from Flower Grand First, it was in a very small Zoom room, and I just fell in love. There's no other way. There's just no other unabashed way for me to say it, Gustavo. I just fell in love. So Gustavo Hernandez is the author of the poetry collection, debut collection, Flower Grand First, from the fabulous Moontide Press. And if you're not familiar with their catalog, Lynn McGee's being so gracious today to help me out by putting the links in for everybody. Thank you, Lynn. Look up Flower Grand First, as well as the rest of Moontide Press's catalog. as well as Gustavo's micro chat book, Form His Arms. Gustavo holds a degree in creative writing from the California State University, Long Beach, which I also like to think of as the home of the Queen Mary. And Gustavo was born in Jalisco, Mexico, and currently lives in Southern California. Here is some very serious bubble pride love for you, Gustavo.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I want to start off just by saying thank you to everyone here, all of the readers. I am moved and inspired by all of you. I think that as people who are part of the LGBTQ plus community, it's really important to keep inspiring each other and also supporting each other. And I have 3 people here in this event that I will always be grateful to. Coggin has been an amazing supporter of mine. The love that she has for the poetry community is unbelievable. So thank you, Kai. Also, Mark Ward, Impossible Archetype was one of the first journals to accept one of my poems. And I obnoxiously call him Marky Mark because we're both fans of the comeback, and that's our little inside thing. But thank you, Mark. You are also a huge supporter of poetry, and we appreciate it. And of course, Sandy, I am in love with you. I think that your energy is out of this world, and every time that you ask me to read, I will say yes. I'm just saying that. So I'll get started. The first poem that I'm going to read is called Santana at 16. Play side A again. Me from under the sunset shadow graphs of an orange tree. North, there is a street called Myrtle, where among the arms of lovers and the hopeful cries of vendors, mostly crabgrass and begonias grow. Play side A again, but fast forward to song 2. My sister flips her bootleg Shakira tape, pushes the boombox against the screen of the window, gets back to her addition and subtraction. There's a field just south of Willits where another boy's at practice, running laps, unknowingly absorbing sound. Play side A again, but fast forward to song 2, flip the tape over again. And the sparrows and the neighbors and my parents can't quite seem to ask me why. They're not ready, I'm not ready, but the DJ knows what's up. Thanks. This next poem is called How to Be a Heartbreaker. And I always say this, it's an instructional, but you all don't need help. You've already broken my heart today, thank you. How to Be a Heartbreaker. I am a slow, slow boy, and the ceiling of the room descends bass beating, measuring these men, their grayskull heft, measuring only the belt and the muscle. Picture them evenly matched, evenly skilled, even Steven, block-jawed hard. Imagine them always knowing where the hot blast will hit before the sword is even drawn, a god's aim across the room. And through this summer, I've been pulling myself apart, melting what is left with my version of their fire. The man who knows all of their drinks asks why he's never seen me here before, but the echo of my arm pushing a 20 toward him travels back, finding its approximate shape for weeks. I am changing, reforming to visibility. This is discipline, flexing as a greeting. These are men, God's aim, me soon. A new body prying the slick door open between dimensions, filling a black ceiling with a prayer smoke image, an inversion. Imagine above you a fat-cheeked boy, his belly keeping him there, eternally watching. The next poem I'm reading is called Punto de Cruz. Under the red bougainvillea canopy, he was blessed with faultless vines and blooming yellow floribunda roses. Needles and primary colors warming through the clearings opened up to the Jalisco sun. He came with his mother. My mother says his work was better than theirs. He was alone, distinguished, a good companion. Saturdays, pressing 2 outfits for 8 a.m. mass. Mornings, warming the cinnamon tea for his mother. There was another she knew, and he paid a man for his eyes, his hands, for the grip that the shovel and rake didn't drain. Summers through a screen door and plain wrap beer in California. The steam of his pores made the money he sent past a solid line border grow lighter. My mother saw his wife's hungry mouth zip tight with subtraction. When you left, on the evening she met you and cried, I asked her if those were the only 2 ways she saw me in love, birthright or bartering, and the direction that she'd pushed me in, not teaching me to cross stitch. Thank you. This poem's called Third Shift. I told a gas station attendant that I loved you. It was 2 a.m., you were still at work, and the roadside blooms blew their scent to me. Staggered, blinking, the stars were all harpstrings plucked on navy and black, notes descending, dissolving, shy and disappearing over the coronet of our mountains. By this time, my courage had been spent in a ribbon white rush, in a hotel room whose backcloth was a steady voice of a late night talk show host, spent on the salt and fur of a stranger's chest. And only then did I long for home, for the muted tick of our kitchen clock. Only then was your factory work heavy upon me, the blonde and the gray of your roughening face. This poem is called Hookup Number 1. I drove the 11 miles to your house, and on the way no longer bothered the chaparral or the mountain with questions. I couldn't imagine spring as a wife. In your living room, it was a small framed reproduction of the Newport coast, light and easy, a maze of veined marble tile under my feet. Leading with the light head of a wounded man, more than that 3 days worth, I wanted to say I'd saved everything for you. The warmth of my truck to the things that had buckled and curved in my memory like you have now. And I don't mind that your name was lost to the demand of summer. I still see the warming planter, the bachelor's button fully grown, and there we are, unlimbering the biggest thing we thought we could offer each other. This is the last poem I'm going to read. Thank you all again. Thanks to all the readers and the listeners and Sandy and everyone. Happy Pride. This poem's called Zach Spears Bartends at the Fault Line. We walk in half hexed by sun, the light inside a softer appraiser. The whole place is wet with summer answers. It is 2 in the afternoon. And everyone is low light, going from sermon to hymn, semaphore to boxing drill. We are low light, all haunches and confidence. Let's call each other grown among bodies that say nothing else. Muscle mature, bristling curved, capable. Let's call each other grown in the center of the city, crushed out and ecstatic, flanked by what we say we want. But say you still hear our parents calling into our rooms, our nieces as children. Say you can still feel the chain link fences, the gardenias growing through them. It is early enough. Thank you so much, everyone.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, Gustavo. Always a transcendent experience to hear your work. I just adore your voice and your presence.
Thank you.
And
Thanks
of
so
course,
much.
the poetry. As well, another of our poets that will be returning because in our new book showcase. So join Gustavo in December to be back for a longer set from from the debut collection, Flower Grand First. And also thank you for reading in Bloom in April. It was quite the it was quite the blossoming that day.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
It was
Thank
beautiful.
you. Thanks for
I look
inviting me.
forward to next time, and happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
Well, our next poet is Karen Poppy, and Karen Poppy, I appreciate the energy that Karen always brings to the screen, which is, of course, for many the only for so many people, that's been the only way I've interacted is through these little screens. But it has been so great to get to know Karen and Kitty, who we might hear a little bit about, through this platform of poetry, and has read with us in the New Book Showcase and in the National Coming Out Day March, and just so appreciative for how you always step up for poetry and for being such a solid member of this community. Well, Karen's chapbook, Crack Open Emergency, was published by Finishing Line Press in 2020 and has another chapbook forthcoming with Finishing Line Press, Our Own Beautiful Brutality, this year, and will be joining us for a New Book Showcase. Another chapbook, Every Possible Thing, was published by Homestead Lighthouse Press in 2020. Karen is joining us from the San Francisco Bay Area and proudly identifies as non-binary, genderqueer, queer, gay, and lesbian, because identities are complex and multifaceted. And if nothing has kind of shown that to us, it's been through the course of today's reading, which, as I like to keep using that word, what a prismatic window into all that alphabet of queerness we've had today. Thank you so much, Karen, for joining us. And here are your pride bubbles.
Thank you so much, Sandy, for that wonderful introduction. I don't know if you saw me pop off the screen, but that was because Kitty heard her name and she started to whine and bark. So I had to let her outside. But I have good news that a poem that I wrote about Kitty, who is actually a dog, called Feathered Finance, it's just been accepted today for an anthology titled Rescued, Tales of Queers and the Animals Who Love Them. So I thought that was kind of perfect for today, right? And I'm actually going to start by reading a poem that I wrote during this reading. I was just so inspired, and I was inspired by something that my partner Rachel and I chatted about yesterday. I wrote a poem titled Lemons. So I'll read that first without much editing, so hope it's okay. Lemons. You didn't know before she told you. Lemon juice brings out sweetness of other fruit, allows us to taste mature mouth of sugar. I owe her everything for what she taught you. You and I, we can harbor harsh pulp, envelop rough rind with our lips. We can endure because of what she taught you, what you in turn taught me. We wrap ourselves around each other, taste each other's sweetness. Sun squeezes liquid through gauze cloth, washes our bodies with lemon yellow, preserves us in this moment of hard-won light. Thank you. So yes, I just wrote that, and thank you all for inspiring me. The next poem I'll read is titled Brewer's Blackbird. These are the sweet little blackbirds that have sharp green, yellow-green eyes. Brewer's Blackbird. Graining feathers to clean, black, sleek sheen of purple and green, his own bold colors and oil slick. Subtle, regal, owner of the scene, male of the species. His yellow eye stares at me, handsome and pale, like my grandfather's, and oh, I can see why my grandmother fell so in love so fast. He too strutted, looked dangerous. We'll have to marry soon. You're testing my virginity. Yes, she actually said that at age 18, 1940. They married and his number came up, drafted by the army. World War II tested them both. My grandfather shot through the face and almost died. Pale eyes startling, skin slack on one side. My grandmother, her eyes red every day. A baby after the war, thank God, another on the way. My father, same eyes. I also have that color. At the moment, I match here eye to eye with Brewer's Blackbird, pale yellow that some call piercing green. This bird, what of his female offspring? Females also medium in size, but plain, brown, and thin. Darkest on wings and tail, with a dark eye, yet some have pale. Are these female birds inwardly like me? Ungendered, inside neither male nor female. Pale yellow eye, an outward sign, a signal. I wrote this next poem recently in March. I was very lucky that for my birthday, my partner Rachel took me to Maui. And I treated myself for my own birthday present to a spa day at a local spa on Maui called Spa Montage. But because of my gender being non-binary, that is, sometimes things are a little difficult in places and spaces where gender is either or. So this is called Spa Pass. At Spa Montage, I pass through, I pass, buffed, shined, polished, and perceived. I pass, my gender, a mirage. Ladies lounge, fresh fruit, water. In their eyes, I display as woman, wahine. Here, binary of gender, only 2 rooms, invisible in this locker, the only way. Also, the only way out, to the pool. Men, women, lounge, sunbathe. I dive in. Wahine, by the way, is the Hawaiian word for woman. So I incorporated that into the poem. So to continue with the diving theme, and for my last poem, it's a longer poem, I'm going to read my poem, Diving at the Lip of the Water. And I'm happy to say that I've now completed the manuscript for my first full-length collection with that title, Diving at the Lip of the Water. And I have started to put it out there. So hopefully it'll find its publishing home soon. And I look forward to that. So this poem was inspired by Judy Grant. She wrote, I am the wall at the lip of the water. I am the rock that refused to be battered. I am the dike in the matter, the other. I am the wall with the womanly swagger. I am the dragon, the dangerous dagger. I am the bull dyke, the bull dagger. That's from Judy Grant's She Who. I also wanted to hold up Eruptions of Yannone, which was recently published. And this was published by Sinister Wisdom and Night Boat Books, a new publication by Judy Grant. My poem, Diving at the Lip of the Water, also takes and is a play on words because of the naming of an antelope, the common diker. The common diker, a small antelope named pronounced diker, uses a pair of glands under its eyes for scent markings with a tarry secretion. Dikers run with a distinctive darting and diving style when they flee danger. This gives rise to its common name, which is the Afrikaans for diver, and that's from the website of Fascinating Africa. Here's my poem. Between trees, within edges of forests, woodlands, among open clearings, with scent markings below eyes, we label each other, and we label an other our own. This is how we bull dikers do it. We males secrete a substance, deftly labeling, marking with our tarry leaf-scented names, our territories, calves, mates. When we run, we dive at the lip of the water, be it a field, a deep forest, a body. We do this from love or fear, which you understand, for you and I mark in the same way. Humans cover with other scents, afraid of labels or diving into them. Each marking energy, power. Labels we give ourselves, labels we use to mark an other. Some say some names change in meaning, mutate over time. Original markers lost. Some we mistake in origin. Bull diker, a male antelope, never the origin of bull dyke. We cull meaning from sound, just as our eyes tell us what we see. We feel an energy, a power. You misread her by mistake or by design. We can only guess at the origin of bull dyke and bull dagger, Roman times, Harlem Renaissance, novels, women singing the blues, dig within erasure and resistance. I like the blues best, the song written and sung by Bessie Jackson, pseudonym of Lucille Bogan. Explicit and raw, prophetic, dirty blues. Peel back the layers, and here it is, lay of the land. Women can be whatever they choose. Come in a time, BD, women ain't gonna need no men. This is a quote from Judy Gran. Quote, bull dyke is the kind of word most women hope to avoid all their lives, for few things are more horrifying to be called, end quote. But these women hold the dagger. Surrounded by hostile bulls, sometimes surrounded by women afraid of difference, sometimes by people who insist she must be a man. We can reclaim the name used on a woman like a whip. We can reclaim our own swagger. Our own swagger can be womanly. Our own swagger can mark our love. So says my lover who loves me body and soul. There must be space for everyone, for women who swagger, for all women. Don't say she isn't lesbian because she loves me. There must be space for her, for me, queer, never quite within borders, between, on edges, in the open. I want to make that clear. Embrace and don't isolate us. Surround us with love, define us, mark us by our love for each other. I love a woman, but my gender bleeds beyond labels and markings, no matter what I'm called and what you call me. No matter what I call myself, I am marked. I bleed monthly. I've been attacked with thrown stones, called a dyke. I swagger womanly, and I love a woman, but I am not one. I swagger and I shift. We have to love each other, those on either side of gender binary, those who transform, transgress, and those who stay hidden in heavy cover. Also those like me who don't fit evenly, who shift and move without gender and within sexuality. Some things, especially hate, can mark you. They have marked me. Call me what you will. I love you as I do, unconditionally. I will love my lover, knowing her beauty shakes the earth, comes from another place, full of energy, power. The sleek diker dives in escaping run, zigzags like my lover's tongue, but my lover is not afraid. My body a safe field, a sheltering forest. She cleanses me, recitations of sacred ash, this beautiful burning, a pooled release. When I cry, I am hers, and I am her. She holds me. There lived a warrior queen named Boudica, Bulldyke or Bulldyker. Boudica burned Londinium, now modern London, to the ground. She led a vast uprising when Romans invaded to destroy her people. What happens if we erase her name? What happens to our own markings of energy, power? Let her be named. Let us dive at the lip of the water into love and fearless. Let us mark each other with freedom, like bold Boudica at the helm of the chariot, horses charging, no one holding the reins. Thank you. I dedicate that poem, Diving at the Lip of the Water, and this entire reading to my partner, Rachel Burr Prey. I love her very much.
Thank you, Karen. Send all my regards to Rachel and to Kitty and everyone I think here who has heard that preview of the upcoming collection is eager to see that manifest into the world, and gonna hold that space for you. Gonna hold that space for you. You know, what happens if all of the swagger and all of those names get erased? And the poems today answered that call. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you next time as well.
Thank you so much, Sandy.
Well, our next poet, another person that is an alum of the Poetry Pride Parade. I actually met Moncho through the Poetry Pride Parade last year and just was astounded by the beauty of her poetry, and was astounded that they did not have a collection yet. And then a month later, we heard this in the biography. Moncho Alvarado is a queer Chicanics poet, translator, visual artist, and educator. They are the author of Greyhound Americans from Saturnalia Books 2020, which was the winner of the 2020 Saturnalia Book Prize, selected by Diane Seuss. It happened just a month or so after the Poetry Pride Parade. Moncho is published in Meridian, Foglifter, Lunch Ticket, and is and has been connected through Lambda as a 2018 Emerge Lambda Fellow, and published in that anthology. Moncho has earned an MFA from Sarah Lawrence College and spends time between Queens, New York with their partner, and Pacoima, California with their family. Would you please welcome Moncho Alvarado?
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you, Sandra. I really appreciate being here again. And thank you, everyone, for being here and the inspiration and the care and love and the abundance that was shared with everyone. I'm going to read 3 poems. This first one's titled, "Ama Teaches Me How to Whistle." She said, "It's fácil. Look up. Kiss everything. Hold the sun between your mouth. Blow like this. After I told her I was a woman, she wrinkled the space between us by hugging me. She told me, "You confused?" I said, "Is the fire confused when it eats?" And told her I'm going by she, they, and my real name, the one I was born with, not given. She said, "You are not what it says on your driver's license. Ama, gracias for believing in this ordinary phenomenon, like the DNA that made grapes, that made them a million times before, a million times after. I have one in my mouth, how round this knowledge, the gush in my mouth, sweet, tart, and bitter. Oh, Ama, I finally learned how to whistle like you. And this one, uh, I deal with the severe depression, and my other queer does as well. And this I wrote for myself and for others that deal with it. It's called A List for Every Time My Depression Tries to obituary me. In the end, in the dark, we breathe the same in a place where words can't be carried. It's in our nature. Look at your hands, brown infinities that can't draw a perfect circle. It's okay not to recall your 10th memory. Whales don't recall all their songs that vibrate the sea. I'm learning to live the things I couldn't. Self-care, compassion, and empathy. An unbearable horizon. The last page, turning in your favorite book. One day I awoke and tried to recall everything. I'm going to live all my dreams, even the one where I speak sunflower. It's okay to cry. Cry out the board is in you. How many people do you think have cried today? Everything has a lesson. You must listen, see, taste, smell, and touch, and you'll know. I have used up all my fears. Spiritually speaking, we are the stars. We nova, flux, lux. Panic will try to take the intensity of nouns. Fight it. Dictionary of the world. Noun the living. Verb memories. Eat a caramel chew. Place it in the roof of your mouth. A sweet gooey that lasts. Create an energy that will live 1,000 generations. My beloved's lips on mine. History opens and closes like an accordion. But do you see all this life? The earth came from gases, molded into a planet. This a part of a solar system. This system a part of the Milky Way galaxy. This galaxy a part of the supercluster, Aneakea, meaning immense heaven, which resides in this universe that made Ama, and she made capirotada, bolillo soaked in piloncillo juice, cloves, cinnamon, raisin, and you. And in my collection, I write letters to my mom, and this is one of them. It's called Dear Ama. Dear Ama, you can't jail a revolution, was tagged on the side of a Wendy's. But Ama, you can make it go into debt and never revolt. Who can afford to move into the future when today is always catching up? A bite into a taste of home, deep fried dough con azúcar, churros, sold by a couple that look like your parents. You told me, abuelo, mind the underworld for ancient memories with millions of dollars under our feet. All his years digging cost less than all the minerals he dug out. You asked him, why do we wear the earth? You said he laughed, coughed up his lungs. But looking at the night sky, I want to wear it, that everywhere your dreams are made real, where the oldest things to survive are like a heart with 4 chambers, The flow sings a remembrance to keep us from exiting ourselves, like a promise to stop eating fried food for a whole year, but sopes, tamales de queso y rajas, asada fries. Well, maybe I'll try again next year. And why why do two hydrogen love one oxygen to let us inhale one of the oldest contracts of the universe, air? It carries the smells of everything, like jasmine, lavender, pine trees, a new book when it opens for the first time. There's matter and energy in there, like our final hug when we last saw each other. I still feel it now, the way we held each other, a universe, a womb that creates, births, and emerges, traces tomorrows, the stars. Thank you.
Another beautiful reading from Moncho Alvarado. Gracias. And I hope you can see from Moncho and everyone before, and our final reader in Charles Flowers coming up before we go to the open mic, why we brought this constellation of people together. What just exquisite poetry. And if any of you know, so be looking for Moncho's new collection, debut collection. And if you happen to know Diane Seuss, thank her very much for helping to bring Moncho's work to all of us. So grateful to have you with us today for our second annual Pride Parade, Moncho. We'll see you soon. And we shift now to our final reader of the open of our featured readers before we go to the open mic. Folks, last year, I am embarrassed to tell you, the Pride Parade was 4.5 hours long. It will not be 4.5 hours long this year. I am a glutton for poetry, and this is me reining poetry in. So our final reader, featured reader today, again, I felt like I couldn't have a Pride Parade this year without inviting Charles Flowers back after just a wonderful reading. Gustavo read in the Bloom Poets Focus we had in April, and wanted to acknowledge the significant contributions that Charles Flowers has held in holding space for so many LGBTQ writers also through the years. For those of you that do not know, Charles Flowers is the founding editor of Bloom, a journal for lesbian and gay writing that Edmund White called the most exciting new queer literary publication to emerge in years when it first bloomed. Charles is the former executive director of the Lambda Literary Foundation, which of course is an organization that has helped amplify so many voices like Moncho and other folks we've had here in Cultivating Voices as the US's leading literary organization for LGBTQ writers and readers. Charles Flowers has also worked as an associate director of the Academy of American Poets and as the deputy director of development at the ACLU in Southern California. And Charles' book collection, The Idea of Him, was published last June, a year ago today, from Midsummer's Night's Press. It is always a deep honor to be in the company of Charles Flowers. Happy Pride to you, and thank you for closing out this segment of the Pride Parade as we get ready to head to the open mic. Here's your bubbles.
Thank you, Sandy. Oh my God. Every time you talk to me, I just like blush so much. I'm like, you're so generous, you're so wonderful. Oh my gosh. And I'm so thrilled to be here among my people, my poets. Yeah, it's been a weird Pride. And I'm in LA. It's usually the second weekend. We couldn't do that. We were under a thing and we opened up after June 15th. So now they're doing it today. And I don't know, it's all over the place. I'm going to read 4 poems, and I really appreciate Moncho and Minnie Bruce for singing and whistling in their poems, because my first poem and my last poem, I won't call it singing, but I will mouth some lyrics that appear in songs. And I'm always shy to do that, but you have inspired me and encouraged me. So this is my book, The Idea of Him, from Midsummer Night's Press, who's also published Julie Marie Wade. So that's, it's a great press. And the first poem is called Jacaranda, which is a tree I never knew until I moved to California. Jacaranda. It's late May and jacaranda petals cover Kings Road. Small purple blossoms across the asphalt and sidewalks, each car's shine blotted and stained. Yet their beauty cannot be denied. On my first encounter with their purple light, I fell into the land of Dr. Seuss, where bright trees and a talking cat can teach a boy a lesson. Imagine myself in a forest of purple. I wish, where melancholy Sondheim sings to me. I wish more than anything, and I am back in Tennessee, finding my mother alone on our screened porch, listening to the summer night and the heart's litany, to be single, to be married, to have a child. My heart was just beginning to dream its own tale, a prince to rescue me from a Baptist dragon. I wish. Today, a purple tree and plangent show tune remind me how the heart endures. Its chorus of desire never abandons me, season after season. This next poem is sort of about this early love, I'll call it. It's called Pas de deux, which is a ballet term. Pas de deux. 2 bodies new to one another, we fumble after sex, throwing off sheets, then pulling them up as we assemble our twice-weekly nest. We're not spoons, more like forks, a landscape of elbows and knees, a sea of twisted sheets. We settle only to toss our bodies minutes later into a new pose, huddled, cuddled, a freeze of affection that lasts until an arm goes numb, flesh heavy and cold as slate. But when one starts to move, the other takes up the rhythm, shifting, resettling, perhaps a squeeze, a kiss, as if to whisper, I am here. One final caress before falling into each other's silence. I never care what position we finally assume, as long as we touch, nose against neck, butt to back, some point of contact for the will to drain from the body. Each time he's first to snore, and I'm amazed by those who surrender so soon after collapse, while I still wander, dazed, through the rooms of my heart. Once, a boy I love fell asleep on top of me. It was after sex, and in the darkness, I whispered his name, only to find his body inscrutable, his solid face buried in the nape of my neck. I slowed my own breathing to echo his, and I thought, he trusts me this much. When I shifted, he woke, startled and unknowing, staring at me, a stranger who'd entered his dream. And then he dived away again, his breathing constant, wheezy and oblivious. I often think of Cleopatra, proclaiming her envy to a handmaiden. Oh, happy horse to bear the weight of Antony. To be pinned down by another, to wake with a heart beating to enter your chest. Does the day revolve to bring us to this moment? Do we rise only to return to this bed where we can lay for hours against the violence of morning? Last to sleep, first to wake,
I trace this boy's jaw with kisses, then hold his hand beneath the sheets. Raw with stubble burn, clumsy with lazy kisses, we learn this ballet of beginnings. The idea of him is the title of my book, and this is the title poem. I use that phrase, the idea of him, actually in 2 poems, which I'm not sure is allowed, but I did. But this is the one that I think is the title poem. The idea of him. On a dirt road bordering a field behind his house, I stood for a whole roll of black and white, not the poses of childhood, but alone against a backdrop of waist-high grass and budding trees. He told me where to stand, but nothing else. My arms empty and awkward. I didn't know whether to grin or frown, so I did both, folding my arms, then releasing them before fanning them out from behind my head as after sex. It was Sunday and the May heat was rising, my legs sore and sweaty from hours of dancing the night before. A photographer who wore black, he danced with his hips and his fists, his face a grimace until asked his name. At 4 a.m., we walked past houses of folks dreaming of work and church to the slow negotiation of the front door and first kiss. I was drunk and afraid of my body, his cock wet in my hands, a cry opening into water. I never saw his pictures of me, yet every day I pass men my age then, with the same squint and flutter in their eyes as they move toward what they want. And their hearts, I imagine, are pure. I want to tell them about losing something before you have it or even know what it is. But I hurry past them toward home, as if somebody were waiting for me to open the door and embrace him, or the idea of him. This morning, my desire, thin as mist, lifts from the web of his smile, his green eyes blazing over me, his red, thinning hair, the white ridges of his back, his wrist circling the lens, my face a blur, then distinct, and his. Thank you. And thank you, Sandy, for all the work you do. You are not a glutton for poetry. You are a warrior for poetry. You're a poetry warrior. We should all be in your army. I think we all are in your army. And I'm going to close with, I cannot think of a more appropriate poem than today. The title is The Sun Always Shines on Pride Sunday, which has been my experience. The sun always shines on Pride Sunday. Monday after Pride at the Gold Coast, the bar sits mostly empty, save for the older crowd who keeps the place open most nights. Baseball flashes across the screens, yet no one pays attention, but the husky, bearded bartender who makes you feel, if not wanted, then a little special. 20 years ago, I would have dreamed him home and mine and forever. Tonight, I settle for a smile and a wink and him remembering my name. When Age of Aquarius comes on the jukebox, yesterday's march comes to mind. Let the sun shine. Its remnants of glitter still gleaming the street outside. At times, I am of the age exhausted by pride. Decades of marching, chanting, the insistent, forced joy. Let the sun shine. What is the past tense of pride? Still, I crave the pageantry, how it felt to be young and gay and in the open air, unafraid and surrounded by so many who love the way I do. Let the sun shine. The heart's echo redeems the body, lifts me beyond the dark moments. We are always marching into the sunshine, our arms in the air, ascendant. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charles. We should, I want to put a call out, like everybody in this next year, if you don't already have a pride poem, write a pride poem. And we'll come together next year and read all our pride poems like together. And I won't call it gluttony. I will just call it pride. Everybody, we've been here with for our featured poets for the Poetry Pride Parade. You know, we have traveled far and wide and heard so many stories, and I want to just take a moment before I introduce Emma Black, who's going to start off our open mic, to thank all of our featured poets once again by name. Thank you so much. We started out with Ann Walsh Donnelly, Kai Coggin, Charlie Dale, Julie Marie Wade, Mary Oishi, Mark Ward, Minnie Bruce Pratt, Gustavo Hernandez, Karen Poppy, Moncho Alvarado, and we closed to finish out our bloom with Charles Flowers. How about we just unmute very briefly and give everyone just our clapping from the side of the parade. Happy Pride!
Happy Pride, everyone.
Beautiful, beautiful. Oh my gosh, so much shared. Thank you for all the humanity that is our LGBTQ community. When we remember all the components that make us who we are, all the history and our humanity together. I'm going to turn this over now to our fabulous MC for the open mic. We have, I think, 9 folks reading in the open mic. It'll be 1 poem, up to 3 minutes, and joining us with their own amazing costume, way better. I love what you did, Emma Black. Emma Black joining us from your wonderful prismatic experiences in France and Dublin and all the places that you travel to bring. I am so fortunate to get to hear you often and not often enough on Lime Square Poetry out of Limerick, Ireland. I'm so glad that you were willing to stay up tonight to MC our open mic. You are astounding, and I know people will love hearing one of your poems later, and we'll have you on Cultivating Voices again for folks to hear you, of course. Thank you, and I'm going to turn it over with so much gratitude to you, and look forward to hearing everybody in the open mic. Thanks everybody for sticking around to close out our wonderful parade for today.
Thank you so much, Sandy, for that infinitely generous introduction, as always, and welcome to the Poetry Pride Parade open mic. So the one rule I'm going to remind you of an extra time is that the performances are supposed to last up to 3 minutes. So I have this very small bell, which I stole from a very small cow, and I'm going to ring it once very delicately, like that, 10 seconds before the 3 minutes are up, to warn you, to wrap up your poem. And then if she starts spilling over, I might have to ring it a little more aggressively, but I hope it won't come to that. So Martina McGowan, would you like to start us off with one of yours?
Absolutely, thank you. And thank you, Sandy, and this was awesome. This is untitled and actually fairly new. What if we were brave, learned to drink the unpotable, and stood steadfast and assured in the face of the seemingly untenable? What if we could synchronize our feelings to this moment, perfecting pitch and rhythm the way our hip bones match the desires of our feet, our hearts, and our hands when we dance, or walk, or make love? What if we make the assumption that we know who we want with us at the end of our days, knew we would survive any quivering or ruffling of feathers and feelings? Could we finally learn to breathe deeply enough we'd calm our own rebellious hearts? What if we wore memorial stones commemorating lost loves and missed opportunities as pendants, as precious to us as pearls? Would our truths then permeate our marrow, tamping down our tendencies to doubt, keep us off the trail of self-sabotage? Would our wills and backbones stand erect as we surrendered only to ourselves? What if we could turn every occasion of our meeting into something we could hold near to our hearts, acted upon instead of dithering? Acknowledge that we only have loan of this small sliver of infinity. Could we act more courageously, stand and fight for each other, weather the storms we might conjure? Or will we still stand motionless in anticipation of further signs from a universe that has already spoken, and let an eternity of happiness elude us again, perhaps for good? What if we were brave, this time together, risking everything for ourselves, for us, for love, for love? Thank you.
Thank you, Martina. Ray, would you like to read?
Oh, thank you. And I'm so nervous because I'm just stunned by everyone's prismatic beauty. And I'll just share one poem that was recently published in Whale Road Review. It's called Half an Orange. I click my pencil. Outside the classroom window, lusty cicadas perform their modulated song. Their ancestors buckled and unbuckled their tymbals across the Roman bridge before this town became Salamanca. Citrus trees cast shade across stone courtyards. The university's libraries hold books older than printing presses, but it is under fluorescent light that I learn the words for soulmate. Media naranja. Rind stains my hands, pulp bursts when I split the fruit, fibrous pith sliding under my fingernails, not quite a platonic symmetry. But that evening, in an internet cafe filled with humming machines and homesick foreigners, I email my beloved. Longing has stained orange and sugared my fingers. I tell her I miss the points of her hips, angles of clavicles, nighttime grove of mouth, blossoming implicature of tongue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Julie, would you like to read? Oh, Julie, I think your mic is still muted.
Sorry, I'm really nervous. Okay, I'm going to read a persona poem from my forthcoming collection. And I'd like to provide a content warning. There's mentions of cancer, just so people know ahead of time. Poem of my life. Driving back from the oncologist's office, I stopped at a roadside diner to write you the poem of my life. I had intended to go straight home to you, heat the good kettle to steaming. I would have sat you down, overlooking the garden, the impossible bursts of color we spent years cultivating, and broken the news over ice lemon pound cake. I had thought to reminisce about the Pride March that brought us together, our raised fists captured in black and white for posterity, the hum of the after hours club, where we slow danced breast to breast beneath dim dust-filled lights, knowing we could be raided and not caring. Everything that came after in your rented room, so sparsely furnished, it seemed naked. What we found and all that we lost along the way, the loved ones who stopped loving us, the lies we hissed through gritted teeth in order to land jobs or keep them, the slurs spelled out in spray paint on our front door, the stones that shattered windows, the sticks that broke bones. We weathered all the storms together, got married in our 60s, our kiss captured for posterity, this time in rainbow colors, displayed like an Olympic gold medal all over social media. We had made a pact to die of splendid old age in a single breath, embraced on a bed of petals. And now this, a fight we cannot win, no matter the strength of love we brandish. So please forgive my tardiness today, but I needed to set these words to paper. Let the ink weep for a spell before laying my head in your lap to say goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Just a reminder to put all of your info in the chat, all open like readers, if you'd like people to be able to find your stuff, don't hesitate. And now, David, would you like to read?
Yes, thank you. I just unmuted myself. I have a pantoum called Butterflies Just Out of Reach. And basically it's one man's journey to pride. Butterflies just out of reach. I am not here to make you comfortable. The mothers raised me otherwise, of course. Do not disturb your elders, they declared. Say yes, sir. Say yes, ma'am. Do as you're told. Of course, the mothers raised me, or else, they said. The belt was handy, the reflex slap. I said yes, sir, and yes, ma'am. I fell into line. My father's eyes did all the rest. His belt was ready, his backhand too. There was no give in Daddy's love. My mother's eyes did all the rest. I tamed the wild inside, or should I say, I tried. Knowing they loved me, I gave myself no quarter. When I confessed to the priest, I prayed for prayer to tame the wild inside. I tried. I say I tried. My hands like butterflies the while, just out of reach. When I confessed, the priest prayed I be delivered from the sin of touching a body just like mine. My hands reaching, touching, free as butterflies released and trapped, released again. Decades of this dance, touching a body just like mine. Sinless, 3 men who loved me taught me so, untrapped me, released me, danced me free. To one of them I said, I say, I do. 3 men who loved me taught me to let go of what the old ones might declare. To the elders then I say, I've said I do. I am not here to make you comfortable. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Susan, would you like to read?
I would love to read. I've been working on a series of villanelles, and I have this one for you. It's an homage to a mentor poet of mine, Muriel Rukeyser, and it's called World Split Open Villanelle. This is the world of the truth being told, the world split open and free. Yay, Sandy. This is the world of the truth being told, the world split open and free. You, voice in the wilderness, unleash and unfold. A treasure more precious than gold, such is her forthright luminosity. This is the world of the truth being told. Come strong, come fierce to break the mold. No more violence, no more hypocrisy. You, voice in the wilderness, unleash and unfold. No more war, none left in the cold. No one goes hungry, no more poverty. This is the world of the truth being told. An end to rape, we touch and we hold. Love in this life, joy in this body. You, voice in the wilderness, unleash and unfold. Words come as prayer, simple and old, invoke communal vision of equality. This is the world of the truth being told. You, voice in the wilderness, unleash and unfold. Thank you, and happy Pride to everyone.
Thank you, Susan. Scott Norman, would you like to read?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I just learned today that Stephen Dunn passed away. I'm a neurodiverse person. I was not allowed to finish the 9th grade, and I'm quite controversial. But I mean, Stephen, I've thought about the concept of people being forced into closets, and with all due respect, it sucks, whoever you are, whatever your situation. So this is farewell to Stephen Dunn. And it's dedicated to the McGarveys and to Sandy Yannone. Closeting stultifies living. We may all come out. A lifetime of closed doors. Bless us all, Stephen. You opened a door.
Thank you so much, Scott Norman. Yeva, would you like to read?
Thank you so much. Sandy, thank you so much for encouraging me to come. I'm so happy to be here. This was beautiful. And it was Minnie Bruce Pratt who was so welcoming to me today. I love this reading today. I have one poem, but I'm going to do it my usual way. If you don't know me, I do a little, it has a little music. It's a short poem. Queer poem. I'm not going anywhere, but I resist having to shove my pride into this 30-day designated time. I'd rather spread it out thick on all 365 days and nights every year. Besides, this is the month to remember Tiananmen Square, to think of Wan Don and the others who survived. It's the 5th anniversary of the Pulse nightclub massacre. My own Club Q, another tiny box with no exit at the back, has been shuttered because of a pandemic and not a gun's strife. But I remember both every time I pass through the Castro. It's also Juneteenth, when I remember how emancipation was so cruelly delayed. And for more than 20 years, I'm missing the loss of my father this month. So there's pride and delight in every type of queer love, and there's sadness and anger because the world is not quite right. We have a finite time to dance or parade. So at this cusp of summer, I celebrate and remember my sadness and anger and pleasure and pride. And I choose my rainbow curtain, quilt, flag, or life every day I have left before I too slip away. Thank you.
Thank you, Yeva. Dawn, would you like to read?
Thanks very much. This is the title poem for my book. It struck me that this is apropos. our shared humanities. Nothing is deadlier, dogma, so beautiful, courage, riskier, faith, seductive, privilege, more noble and just, war, more profane, indifference, crueler, God, no greater truth, kindness, nor greater lie, color, nothing more human, discovery.
Thank you, Dawn. So I'm going to perform a quick poem of my own, and then I'll hand over to Sandy to perform one of theirs and close the event. I just want to say that as I was prepping this poem a few hours ago, a very small canary that I'd never seen before flew into my apartment and started hopping around my room, which I think is an unquestionably good omen. So here goes. In which Anubis weighs my heart against one of my own feathers. In the whispers of my layered skirts, they all insist on seeing girl, but I feel bird. I stoop under the shelter of my hand-embroidered feathers, bunch the colors to my hips, because I always sit crouched on the pavement, picking up some shiny treasure I found. My queer is colorful and cheap, like a birthday party clown. The show is all day, every day, except on mornings when I get to lie asleep in a nest of crumpled curves that no one's there to mistranslate as feminine charm. I am a woman in the same way that a water-growing dinosaur can brush the glass ceiling of the science museum. I sit on fences, perch on chairs, and make a big deal of picking every side. I'd grow my hair to the floor to seduce my mate, impress her with my tail feathers, curl my crest to tickle his thighs. I hop from foot to foot around the edges of their sunbeam, sing my heart out, hope they'll see there's nothing else to my disguise. Thank you so much. Happy Pride, everyone.
Thank you so much, Emma, and thank you to all of our open mic readers in the Poetry Pride Parade. Each of you a tremendous float, and we even had the band for a little bit. I'm going to close us out with actually the final, the closing poem in Votes for Women. I'm a little daunted to be reading a villanelle after Susan's villanelles, but I'm gonna give it the old Pride try here. So this is called The Girl Who Catches Everything. We have all the time in the world, in pants pockets, in the space between our breasts, on our tongues, and in the future twirling over us, like a girl's fire baton hurled into the stadium sky. In her hands, she will catch all she has all the time. The world will not throw her off balance, despite the swirl of the crowd anticipating her drop, the stress on the edge of every tongue. In the future, twirling naked in bed, we will remember these baton girls we did not risk the chance to undress when we had all the time in the world. We will remember their hair, every curl we did not allow our fingers to address, or our tongues, or the future twirling away from their spectacular bodies. We will pearl our lives with each minute lost. The rest we will have all the time in the world and on our tongues where the future twirls. Thank you so much, everybody. A few final thoughts as we close our grand Poetry Pride Parade today. And what an afternoon, evening it's been. You know, thanks to all our readers, our featured readers, our open mic readers. We can never have a reading like this without opening up the open mic. So I'm so grateful. And of course, to our guest MC for the live open mic. Oh, Emma Black. Oh, thank you, Emma. Just wonderful. Always just love hearing your work. Well, if any of you have any upcoming readings or announcements, this would be a great time to type them in the chat while I give you just a few more announcements. Next Sunday, we're actually going to return here in the US. It's the 4th of July, and we're going to have a fireworks display of poetry with an all open mic reading. So come on back, read another poem, tell your friends who are, hankering to read, and we'll see what we can do. I want to remind all of you that also on the 4th of July, that Charlotte Mew chapbook contest from Headmistress Press closes. So if you have a manuscript and want to submit that, Headmistress Press is open, eager to read, to read your manuscript. This year's judge is none other than Julie Marie Wade, who you heard today. And the first prize winner will receive $300 plus 20 copies of the winning book, and will return next year and be one of our headliners here at the Poetry Pride Parade. And all entries will be considered for publication. Well, we return after the 4th of July with our new book showcase on July 11th, and on July 18th, we come right back with another open mic opportunity with our focus of translation, with features currently Peter O'Neill and Nina Kosman, and a call out to all of you translators to come read your work on the live open mic in what I hope will be a kaleidoscope of many languages. I want to truly, deeply, madly, pridefully thank all of you for joining, Emma and all of our features and all of you in the open mic and everybody in Facebook who's been watching live for today, our second annual Poetry Pride Parade. May we go forth well into the year to come back for our third year. And thanks again to Don Krieger for being our production wizard, and Kim Ports Parson for being our promotion goddess, and Kim will be posting again tomorrow all the links for our featured poets. Please support the poets and the press. You heard some astounding poetry today, and I know they, as well as I, would appreciate you appreciating them by purchasing one or all of their books. Our humanity truly, truly depends on our deep listening of one another as we come together to share our stories that illuminate our exquisite differences. And I think that that is no more evident than in the alphabet that comes together whenever we are celebrating Pride. Poetry provides that rich practice for that deep listening. So I want to urge all of you, keep coming back each week, keep going to the other reading series like those hosted by the folks that we heard from today. Keep listening and keep writing, my friends. Much love, happy Pride, be well, and we'll see you in July. A final bubble blow.